Okay, if we want to,
My brother raised. Yeah, I did his house.
if we're ready, we'll reconvene. We'll move to item number 25, and I believe that's you, Matt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable board members, item number 25 is regarding the current public defender contract and the first level conflict public defender contract. The public defender contract is currently with the law offices of Gregory LaForge. The first alternate contract is with the law offices of Harry Damkar. Both of these contracts are set to expire June 30th, 2014, the end of this month. There are no rollover provisions in the contract. Therefore, we need, your staff is suggesting that we have an interim 4-month extension of the current contracts under the same terms and conditions as they currently contain. As the board knows, the ad hoc subcommittee was formed last meeting. We're in the process still of gathering the pertinent information together at the staff level before we meet with the ad hoc committee, which we think is probably going to happen next week sometime. Once we meet with the ad hoc, we'll be able to come back to the board and with a suggested solution or a path forward as to where we're going with this. But we need some time, so we believe that this extension, the 4-month interim appointment, will give the ad hoc committee and the board sufficient time to address in an intelligent way where they want to go with the public defender contract.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor De La Cruz?
thank you. Matt, I recall a couple years ago there was a subcommittee to review the second level conflict resolutions and the interest of saving money. And I'm looking at the public defender's budget account, and it seems like it's pretty consistent that the projected expenditures for 13-14 will be the same as what has been budgeted. My understanding was that we were going to be able to save some expenses, some income off that new way of going into a second level of a conflict.
Right. So it's actually a third level. That was Mr.
thank you.
Cantu was
Thank you.
appointed at the third level. Mr. Damkar is essentially the second, and then Mr. LaForge is the first. So that's true. We now have 3 attorneys under a flat fee contract. I do anticipate that there will be savings to the county to that. The amount budgeted, I didn't participate in the budgeting, but the amount budgeted, my understanding, is simply that. That's the budgeted amount, which reflects approximately $1 million each year. Now, that doesn't mean that that entire amount will be spent. I'm hoping, and Sarah is actually getting the information together, I'm hoping that for the last fiscal year, less than the $1 million was actually spent. Some things, however, are outside the county's control in that budget. How many capital murder cases occur in each year, how many first-degree assaults, those things which the county has no control over, that also drives the budget. But we have that information together. We will be meeting with the ad hoc committee. That committee will be reporting back to the board as to what the fiscal experience has been over the last year. I'm hoping that we will be able to demonstrate some savings.
Perfect. Thank you.
Open this up to the public. Anybody from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I will make a motion to approve per staff recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Then we're on to item number 27, Mr. Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, a few meetings ago, we met with your board concerning the Clear Creek management area, and a request from your board was to come back and provide a letter of no confidence for the leadership at the BLM or Clear Creek management area. So what we have before you today is a letter of no confidence for your review and approval. We have Sarah here to discuss this item further. Sarah?
Hi, everyone. So on April 15th, 2014, if you don't mind, Supervisor Barrios, I have your words. You stated that you wanted to make a request to prepare a letter of no confidence for Rick Cooper and BLM that you wanted to say on record that the actions were an injustice to San Benito County. They lacked effort, cooperation, and accurate information for what they've done. You were hoping to have something prepared to receive support from fellow supervisors, and at that time, Supervisor Botello did support that request. So with those words, I, along with staff, County Counsel Barbara Thompson, tried to draft something around what you had stated. So I am hoping in the letter provided that it did meet that. Today, we're hoping for, the entire board to review that and decide if any edits are needed, if they're happy with the letter, if something should be revised, or perhaps whether or not they want the letter to go. So I'm here to take in any edits or comments on this, or anything I can do to move it along.
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor Barris?
Sarah, thank you so much. Yes, it did express exactly what I was trying to say and more. And I really appreciate, I don't know who did the letter, but whoever had any part in writing this letter did an excellent job of expressing exactly what I feel they did, what happened to San Benito County as a result of what they did, and what can happen in the future. And I appreciate that at the end that you mentioned that we support HR 1776. And so I commend you all for a great job on that letter, and I think it needs to go forward to what it's intended to happen with it. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I like the mix of the technical aspects as well as something that everybody could relate with, lifetime risk of the, off-road vehicle, motorcycle use in Clear Creek is less than an individual smoking a cigarette per year. I like that. That's good. And that's pretty much, breaks it down to all levels, even people that are a little bit more simple-minded back in Washington. So, good job. Thank you.
Open this up to the public. Anybody from the public like to address this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I will make a motion that we approve the letter, authorize the chair to sign it, and send it to the recipients that are stated here. And if there are any others, I want to make sure that it does go to Washington.
Yes.
And I know it's going to Congressman Farr. And I would actually like to see it go to some of our other representatives, like our Senator Canella and Assemblyman Alejo. I really want them in the loop, just so that they know what we're doing and what position we have taken. So yeah, that's my motion.
Would it hurt to send it to the entire California delegation? And
Why not?
why not send it to all of them? If it's not trying to overburden you, but at least the California delegation.
Okay.
This way we get the, all the, Congressman Denham and so forth.
I agree. But I made a motion, so I will amend it to include your recommendation. When you say delegation, any others that represent us
Right.
directly in California. So I will amend my motion to reflect that.
Okay. So did you also second
Oh,
that?
yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. That, we'll move on to item number 28.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this item number 28 on our agenda, was also requested of your board to come back today. So we are here today. We have Sarah again to comment on this particular item. It's with regards to the TOT and moving forward with that, as well as what the percentages are. So Sarah here has the floor again. Sarah.
So before I begin, I'd actually like to pull some numbers from the California Travel Impacts by County 1992 to 2012 from the California Travel and Tourism Commission, published May 2014. These numbers for 2013 are preliminary, but I thought they were important to mention. One of those numbers is the total direct travel spending in California was $109.6 billion in 2013. During the past year, travel spending increased by 3.2% in current dollars. Employment, total travel-generated employment increased by 4.4%. And relating to Local tax revenues, there was a growth of 6.4%, which was driven by increased lodging tax receipts due both to room demand and room rates. A little more on the actual travel revenue for federal, state, and local for 2013. Federal received about 43% from travel-related revenue, totaling $5.4 billion, 34.7% for state, and 22.3% of that was local, totaling $2.8 billion. Of the total of the $12.5 billion generated in California, 60% of that was actually from international visitors, which was interesting to know for me. So moving on, the TOT has been of topic among intergovernmental and other areas, especially in relation to the T-bid. What I'm trying to find out today from all of you is whether or not, one, you want to increase it, if so, by what percent, and also if the increase will be a general tax or special. Once I have figured that out from all of you, I will be able to go back and work with the auditor and county council on our next steps, which would be in all likelihood on July 8th, the adoption of a resolution requesting the item to be on the November 2014 ballot, and the amended ordinance as well. So should also probably state general tax. Barbara's coaching me on this one, so Barbara, feel free to jump in if I get it wrong. For the general tax, my understanding is that in order for it to be approved by the board, we'd need 4 of 5 of you, a majority, to approve it as a general tax. If you want it to be a special tax, then we'd need 3 of 5 of you, and then it's actually reversed for the voters' need. So if it's a special tax, then we need the 2/3 of the vote, and then if it's a general, then we need just a majority. So that's also there for your knowledge.
Okay, are there any questions?
No, just a comment that I would like to see it be a general, so that with the understanding, I know that we cannot identify what we're specifically going to do with it, but we have to somehow get across to the voters what our plan is, if we can do that, generally, anyway. So that's what I will support.
I think we need to work on it, and we also need to move forward on giving the insurance, the members of the public, especially the economic members of this community, that we mean to play ball, and we want to play with them. And so this is the first step, is to move forward and go with a general election. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that, I'll open it up to the public. Anybody from the public want to address this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I don't know, I'd like to see it as a general and at 12% myself. I'll make a motion that we make it a general tax and support the 12% number.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute.
Open to question. I won't support a general tax. I won't support any tax, in fact, just because I don't, in my opinion, you have the city of Hollister just passed a tax. I don't want to see us tax our way out of these problems, unfortunately. And so I can't support a general tax without being able to specifically promise. I have a problem with local bodies making promises at election time to, especially when it comes to a tax, that they're going to, have a dedication or a promise to attach these funds to something when, in fact, we can't do that. And so with that being said, I can't support a tax at all. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
With this discussion under the question, can we, and I'll ask our auditor, could we say publicly that if this passes, that we will set an oversight committee made up of whomever we want to include, particularly the business community? Can we say that and say, just in general, that if it passes, that's what we would like to do?
As part of the measure, you can have a question, shall we set up an advisory committee for the purpose of, you know, advising on how these funds could be spent.
Okay,
That, you know, the board can do that even with this kind of a tax.
okay. Well, then, if that's the case, then that's what I would like to say, and somehow incorporate that any way we can to show that we, in good faith, want to make sure that these dollars are used effectively and for the purpose they're intended. So,
But remember that even though it's advisory, the board is not duty-bound to take any of their advice because this is really general purpose monies that are being collected.
okay. And I understand that, but I think the more we say it, the greater the trust will be.
Was there any specifics that you'd like included in the measure language about the advisory committee, or would you just like it to state an advisory oversight committee shall be established, or do you want to set the number of people and the composition of that advisory committee in the measure?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I should withdraw the motion, and then we probably should discuss this a little bit further, because I don't necessarily agree with the advisory committee either. It's not that much money. It's 12%. It's common throughout everywhere I've been is 12%. I don't think you go through that much trouble, and before you know it, we have more staff time fiddling around with $42,000 and then what it's worth. You know, it's a little bit amount, and it's really not a direct tax on San Benito County residents.
Right. Well, I think my point is that we talked about the T-bid, and we didn't get the support from the local, businesses, hotel owners, wineries, whoever we try to reach out to, and primarily because we had not used the TOT tax specifically for reaching out, marketing, tourism, and even though it's not a lot of dollars, it can really go a long ways in promoting San Benito County. So I think this advisory group would help us do that, and in the end, these dollars could be several $1 million because we've done it right. So that would be the reason why I'd like to see us commit to that.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
sorry
okay,
about
we have a motion, we have a second that's been withdrawn.
Yeah.
We're discussing it.
Yeah, we're
right?
discussing.
But can we discuss without a second?
We have a second.
It
Oh, I
just-
thought the second was withdrawn.
You don't need a second if the
Yeah.
motion withdraws, the maker of the motion withdraws. You
Did
don't
you-
need a
did you
consideration of
withdraw?
taking it back.
I thought maybe we should withdraw, and then if we decide to do something different, like specific language in the motion, you might like that better, or you might have a better motion, or, just something that maybe we should
Okay,
just.
so-
Maybe I can amend my motion after discussion, Mr. Chair?
Okay, okay.
Oh, I was the second?
You
You
were
were the
second.
maker.
I
Oh,
thought
I was the maker.
maker.
Oh,
You were the maker, I was the second?
That's right.
Wait, who?
That's right. See?
Oh, okay,
I give
okay,
up.
I was thinking Supervisor Barrios was made the motion.
I was sure I'd made the motion.
Okay, so now that becomes even more. So has the maker of the motion withdrawn it?
Yes, I suggested that we withdraw the motion and have further discussion amongst the board members, and then maybe we could work a better consensus. as
Okay,
far
so
as-
we have no motion on the floor.
We have no motion. I mean,
Okay, all right, so now we're
Thank
back
you.
to,
Thank you.
discussing it.
thank you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate it. I'm not even going to try to explain that. I mean, technically, if there's no second, there's no motion, but let's move on. Why don't we go a little step further and say, okay, and I know this is a hot issue, I know that, but I'll say it. Why don't we show, because I know, we all know what we're talking about, and Sarah, you can testify to this. Let's move forward. Let's create a committee. I mean, I know it's at your level, Sarah, but let's allocate dollars now that we get TOT from now, the 8%, and say we mean business. We need your support to go to the 12%. Let's move forward. I know the issue is faith. I know the issue is trust. I know that. But let's step up to the plate and let's say, okay, we're going to work with you. I mean, that's the best, that's the closest I can come on going on this motion, because Joe's right. We can't go any closer, otherwise it'll become a 2/3 issue, and I don't want it to become in that direction.
Well, but I just wanted to point out that the hospital bond, when it passed, was like a $30 million bond. As part of that, they had an advisory committee. The advisory committee was a very involved committee because it was a lot of money. And when you're talking about a lot of money, the public should become, part of the decision as to how it's spent. From a practical standpoint, an advisory committee for a marginal amount of money of 40+ thousand, it's really, creating another layer of bureaucracy when it's not that much, it's not that much money, really. I really would advise the board not to do an advisory committee for this amount. If you were going for a sales tax measure, 1% sales tax measure, it might be advisable to do it at that point, like the city of Hollister did.
Except not like the city of Hollister.
Yeah, except not like.
Okay, first of
No
all,
comment there.
I just want to remind everybody that this is what I was pushing for yesterday when I wanted to raise the TOT amount in the budget, was to promote it for tourism, economic development, and I took a little bit of persuasion to get to that point, but I think we did get to that point yesterday. So that was my first step. I was trying to make the first step yesterday. I'd like to ask Supervisor Rivas for a clarification on his position. Are you saying you're not against raising the TOT tax, period, or not raising it as a general tax?
I'm not, I'm opposed to it raising it as a general tax. I'd prefer to see it as a special tax.
Okay. And can you clarify, you said the city did something, just recently did something? Did they?
When?
I thought you said the city just.
No, I just made reference to the fact that they had recently passed, a couple years ago now, that their sales tax.
Oh, their sales tax. Okay, I just wanted clarification, just to know what was going on. Okay. Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, I honestly, I still feel pretty strongly about not doing the advisory committee. I agree with Joe Paul on that one. It's not that much money. Not one visitor will make up his mind whether we have it at 8% or 12% and then move on to Gilroy to stay. If they're a stay here, they're a stay here. I like the flexibility of having that money in the general fund, because this county has gone through a hurt that has been unprecedented ever. And we're not out of that hurt yet. When it's just like a family. You don't buy, a TV when you're struggling to put food on the table or even have a house to live in. There's some things this provides flexibility. Maybe at some point we'll add more to a tourism or economic development. And it doesn't have to be about tourism. It might be about another industry that we want to draw into this county that we have to give some sort of, incentive to come. I just think we should maintain our flexibility. That's why I think it should be a general fund tax. And 12% is not like it's the high end. That's a common end. And so I think all of us are on the same page as far as what our intentions are. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I'll stay for right now.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I really like Supervisor De La Cruz's idea. We have TOT tax right now at 8%, and why couldn't we, I know it's not a lot of money, but if you do an advisory committee or whatever we want to call it now, and have it in place before it's even on the ballot, and we can sit at the table and discuss what would you like. Maybe then we could get the businesses at the table and interest. Why not? I would be willing to spend time as a supervisor with those entities. and sit on that so that we can show good faith, we can gain that trust, and I just think it's a good idea. We can establish it even if we didn't do this. So maybe we could do that outside of this general tax motion. Do you follow me, Mr. Chair? You have that perplexed look.
I think you are, if I understand you, you're wanting to take the whole 8% TOT and devote it to tourism?
No. I just want to just have an advisory group that can, where we can discuss the TOT tax and what the county can do to help and promote tourism and promote the county, which in turn, I mean,
With no monies attached to
with
it.
no monies attached to it, just as a good faith effort for, and discuss TOT tax and discuss a future T-bid.
Isn't that what the purpose of organizations like the Chamber of Commerce and the Hollister Downtown Association, isn't that what they're for?
No, you're right, they are.
You're right, Mr. Chair. However, they have said, the elected officials, we don't trust elected officials, and they weren't elected officials in those discussions.
How
So-
true.
So it'd be a good opportunity to say, okay, what is it that we can talk now? So, I know it's a little bit off the discussion, Mr. Chair.
I'm just, yeah. So okay, just keep us focused. Sarah needs some kind of answer because she's under a timeline if we're going to do anything in this year's election cycle.
Okay, then.
Otherwise, we're off for 2 years.
Okay, then in that case, for now, I will make a motion that we determine this tax to be a general tax
At the 12%?
at 12%.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. Okay,
Thank you.
now, do we need to bring this back
I didn't get the motion, so you'll have to talk.
in a future date to discuss these other
Yeah,
issues that were brought up today?
yeah, so an issue that was brought up yesterday was the vehicle abatement program that we have and the Measure F. Again, the elections office are still doing a canvass on that, and we don't have a certified either a pass or fail on that particular ballot. So our recommendation is we're going to probably come back to you on July, our next meeting in July 8th, to come back to your board if you want to move forward with that in the November ballot, and then put it on the August 5th agenda for the resolution. So that's what the tentative plan is right now. Just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. We can put that under discussion on July 8th if we want to move forward with that or not.
But can we further discuss
Okay, but that's
today's?
a separate issue from this. So are we going to agendize this?
We'll agendize that for July 8th. And then this particular item, we're going to agendize this particular item. Our plan was August the 5th. But I know that Sarah just mentioned July the 8th as well. So one of the two meetings will be coming back to your board with this particular item.
So the resolution and ordinance will come back for your vote July 8th with the language there, with the resolution requesting election and the amended ordinance in there that will show general tax 12%. That resolution has to be adopted by the August 5th meeting. That is a couple days over the 88 days required for the election side. So that's the last day that it has to be approved. So you can discuss at July 8th. We can make changes then.
On the same subject of increasing revenues was the Measure F. Measure F was the vehicle abatement. Many people thought it had passed because it had passed with it had 63.23% yes and 36.77% no. But since it's a special tax, it requires the supermajority threshold, 66%, 2/3. So it didn't pass. And this was a low voter turnout election. So it came very close to passage. And I recommended to your CEO that it be brought back to the board for take another stab at it at the November election it's an important source of funding for that vehicle abatement program that we don't notice that it's, we don't notice that as that money is put to work, but we will notice it when the money's not there. And, there's going to be a lot of vehicles on the side of the road, and I think that this is an important program that needs to be brought back.
So we'll agendize that for the 8th and discuss it then.
With the higher voter turnout expected in the general, it has a higher likelihood of passage.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move on to,
Comment on that. That's a new subject.
okay.
Thank you. Measure F. Marty Richmond, I don't remember seeing anything from anybody promoting the vehicle abatement. Maybe there was, and I just missed it. There was no public group or nonprofit group or statement from the board. Nobody did it. As far as I know, no one said anything about it. So, yeah, it's a low turnout election, and enough people at least knew about it. You got 60-something%, but any effort at all about explaining where the money goes and what happened to it, I think, would have passed it easily. So maybe there's a message there. Maybe the voters should not be taken for granted, in my opinion. Now, there may have been a program, and I missed it. I don't know, maybe I just didn't see it on TV, or I didn't see it on CMAP, or I didn't see it on KSBW, or whatever. But if there was, it couldn't have been too much, because I didn't even get a mailer. And I got a mailer from everybody about everything, but I didn't get a mailer on that. Thank you for your time.
All right, we'll move on. Because that is not agendized. I don't want to get too far into the discussion. We'll discuss it on Monday, on the 8th. So, Mr. Espinoza?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're on item number 29 this afternoon. This particular item, I came to your board back in May 27th, 2014, to discuss with you a couple of scholarships that the CAO AC was offering to the CAOs within the state. Again, there were 2 scholarships available. I did apply, and I was accepted by the executive committee of the CAO AC to apply, basically receiving the scholarship. I also had to apply at the University of Virginia to be accepted into the program. So both entities did accept my applications, and so at this point, I'll be going to the University of Virginia for the SEI, or the Senior Executive Institute, and that's at the Walden Cooper Center at the University of Virginia. So with that, I did want to agendize this because it does fall within our board meeting in July 22nd. The actual classes will be the weekend of July the 19th, or July 19th or 20th. So it's actually going to start on the 20th on a Sunday and move all the way through August 1st. So it falls within the July 22nd board meeting. I wanted to discuss with the board the potential of actually removing that board meeting off calendar for that day. Currently, I think we only have one item on the agenda that we were going to go ahead and move to July 8th. So at this point, it's a very light meeting as well. So I just wanted to bring this back to your board to discuss.
Okay. Any thoughts or questions?
I would love to take a vacation. So I would opt to cancel the meeting.
Patella?
Yeah, I think a number of different counties take July off, and I don't have a problem with it.
And we're going to have one meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open it up to the public. Anybody from the public? Seeing none. We need a motion on this, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Done deal.
Yeah.
And we'll move on to our last item for this meeting on the regular agenda.
Yeah, this is item number 30, and this is going to be provided to us, the presentation by our Health and Human Services Director, Jim Riding Sword, and this is with regards to approving a title change for class specification from a program assistant to a program manager. So we have Jim Riding Sword as well as our Human Resources Interim Director, Georgia Cochran, here to present this.
Afternoon. As you may recall, on the 15th of April, we presented and you approved Phase 1 of a reorganization in the Health and Human Services Agency. That particular reorganization included a position called Program Assistant. At that point in time, that was a merit system position. You may or may not know that Merit System is our other personnel agency that we work with out at HHSA. And we needed to then incorporate that position into the county list of titles. After that action, Merit System informed us that they no longer had the position of program assistant, and they recommended that we call it program manager. And this action, if you approve it today, will approve the position of program manager and will then be incorporated into the county schedule. And there is no change in duties, salaries, et cetera, et cetera. This is just kind of a technical change.
Okay, any questions?
Maybe we could all rename ourselves governors.
I don't think that was funny, according to our chairman.
Not an election year. Open it up to the members of the public. Anybody in the public wants to comment on this? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Motion to make changes from program assistant to program manager, Mr. Chair, as said job description.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Now, so we're going to go to closed session, and then we'll come back and finish up the budget.
You can finish up the budget now and then go into closed session, or you can go into closed session now and then finish up the budget, whatever the pleasure of the board is. Or Rick. You're still working on it? Well, tell them that.
Is staff ready?
Yeah,
for the
actually,
budget?
I would prefer to hold off on the budget and complete that after the closed session items. Melinda was taking a lunch, so.
As she should.
Who allowed her to do that?
She's taking a lunch?
How dare her?
What is that?
It's our first one in 4 days now.
All right, then we'll go to closed session.
Okay.
Matt?
All right, the Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session and discuss agenda items number 31, 32, and 33 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 31 is to confer with real property negotiators, and the property in question is 3110 Southside Road, APM 020-320-029, located in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators are Arman Nazimi, Assistant Public Works Director Adam Goldstone. You will? Okay. Capital Projects Manager Ray Espinoza. Ray Espinoza, CAO, Matthew W. Granger, County Counsel, and Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel. The negotiating parties are Caroline Aniath. Under negotiation is the price and terms of payment. Authority can be found for this closed session in California Government Code Section 54956.8. Item agenda number 32 is to confer with real property negotiators regarding property located at the San Benito High School. APN 020-170-043, APN 059-020-001, and 059-020-003, located off Nash Road in Hollister, California. And the Lantis Ward property, APN 020-170-045 and 020-280-052, located at 2100 Cienega Road in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators are Arman Nazimi, Assistant Public Works Director Adam Goldstone. Excuse me, it's Arman Nazimi, the Assistant Public Works Director, and Adam Goldstone, the Capital Projects Manager. Ray Espinoza, the CAO, Sarah Fontanes, Management Analysts, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, and Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel. The negotiating parties are David Lantis on behalf of the Lantis Ward property owners, John Perales on behalf of the San Benito High School District. Under the discussion and negotiation of the price and terms of payment, authority can be found for this closed session in California Government Code 54956.9. Finally, agenda item number 33 is also to confer with regarding real property negotiations. The property is located at 5381 Fairview Road, APN number 017-130-004, located in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators are Armand Nazimi, the Assistant Public Works Director, Adam Goldstone, the Capital Projects Manager, Ray Espinoza, the CAO, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, and Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel. The negotiating parties are Larry Drury on behalf of Go Kids. Under discussion and negotiation of the price and terms of payment for the property, authority for this closed session could be found in California Government Code Section 54956.8.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to address the board on the closed session items? Seeing none, we'll go to closed session.
The agenda?
Can I get one of those?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
See, we've done that already, so budget.
County Council, can we
Thank you,
report
Mr.
out?
Chair. Board of Supervisors met in closed session to discuss agenda items number 31, 32, and 33 on today's agenda. In regards to agenda item number 31, the board met and conferred with its real property negotiators regarding property located at 3110 Southside Road, APN 020-320-029, located in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators are Armand Nazimi, Assistant Public Works Director, Adam Goldstone, the Capital Projects Manager, Ray Espinoza, CAO, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, and Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel. The negotiating parties is Carolyn C. Anyene. Under negotiation was the price and terms of payment. The authority for this closed session can be found in California Government Code Section 54956.8. At this time, the board took no reportable action. In regards to agenda item number 32, the board met and conferred with its real property negotiators regarding property owned by San Benito High School, APN 020-170-043, APN 059-020-01, and 059-020-003, located off Nash Road in Hollister, California. Also discussed was the Lantis Ward property, APN number 020-170-045 and 020-280-052, located at 2100 Cienega Road in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators were Armand Nazimi, Assistant Public Works Director, Adam Goldstone, the Capital Projects Manager, Ray Espinoza, the CAO, Sarah Fontanos, the Management Analyst, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, and Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel. The negotiating parties are David Lantis on behalf of the Lantis Ward property owners, and John Perales on behalf of the San Benito High School District. Under negotiation were the price and terms of payment. The authority for this closed session can be found in California Government Code Section 54956.8. At this time, the board took no reportable action. Finally, agenda item number 33, the board met and conferred with its real property negotiators regarding property located at 5381 Fairview Road, APN 017-130-004, located in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators were Armand Nazimi, Assistant Public Works Director, Adam Goldstone, Capital Projects Manager, Ray Espinoza, CAO, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, and Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel. The negotiating parties are Larry Drury on behalf of Go Kids. Under negotiations were the price and terms of payment. The authority to meet is found in California Government Code Section 54956.8, and at this time, the board took no reportable action.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors.
So moved?
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. And now we will reopen the budget hearing, and we'll continue from yesterday's session. Mr. Espinoza?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are at the end of our budget hearings. As I mentioned yesterday, there were a few slight corrections that we were going to make based off of your board's input. Melinda has been working diligently on making those corrections to the schedules that you have before you now, as well as a few other line items within the actual budgets themselves, and that would be on Schedule 9. So Melinda here is to present those to you. Melinda?
Okay, good afternoon. The information that was just handed out to you are the changes that occurred during the budget hearings and a couple of items that we caught in the meantime. And I gave Denise all the updated schedules, so all the changes that I'm going to quickly go through with you are reflected in the schedules that I gave Denise for the official record. First of all, the budget policies. We deleted the paragraph regarding the identify options regarding mandated reimbursements or programs. And then also in the department head, direct department heads to maintain, I believe that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, the second that was in there, the second word, we took that out. And so these, I believe those are all the changes that I requested, and so we've updated that, and Denise has a copy of that also. On the revenue side, you increased the TOT tax from $75,000 to $90,000, and that's reflected in the revenue schedules. And then we placed, to balance it out, in the Housing and Economic Development Budget Unit 267, we increased membership dues from $10,000 to $25,000.
Mr. Chair, real quick, can you go back to the policies under that direct department heads? Shouldn't the second 13, 14 be rewritten in a different way? Because it seems like, I know, Ray, you must have gave some direction and 13, and 14, right, in this year? So is that correct? I just want to make sure.
I think we were referring to the original, to 13, 14 with regard to 14, 15
Okay.
policies.
As long as, okay, I must have read it different. Okay, thank you.
In emergency services, budget unit 263, we reduced the, you reduced the authorized positions from 2, that was recommended, to 1.5. And those changes are up in the salary section, and that resulted in a difference of $46,401, I believe. And then if you turn the page on operations, we added that difference into the salaries temporary line in operations, budget number 210. The district attorney, I noticed that there was, there was a discrepancy in the authorized positions. We should have shown 10 as the recommended positions, and so I changed that to say 10 instead of 9. And the appropriations for contingencies, there was a mistake on the recommended and approved dates, and so those were changed to say recommended 2014-15 to approved 2015. As we were going through the budgets, Joe Paul realized that he and I had both accounted for his transfer of funds for the CIP project for the courthouse remodel. We had both put those amounts in, so I took them out. Under interdepartmental charges, there was a charge of an expenditure of $200,000, and there was also one in special departmental expense of $200,000. So I eliminated the second $200,000, and then it also eliminated the source of funds. So there's really no change to the budget, other than we took out that second accounting. In the capital road program, there was a slight change between what was recommended in the recommended budget and what was approved yesterday, for a total of expenditures of $12,109,943 and offsetting revenues of that same amount. So I just wanted to make sure that correction got in there. After yesterday's budget hearings, the temporary pool budget unit of 135, the auditor felt was not an appropriate budget unit, and so we put the 80,000 into the county administrative office, as we will be watching the money associated with that program. So
Melinda,
you'll,
Mr. Chair, where is that dollar amount on here?
in the county administrative office, I added that underneath the temporary salaries.
And I'm trying to find it.
Right here, second line.
Go up and top.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then,
temp.
then we eliminated the temporary salaries budget unit, which you will see next. There was an $80,000 in temporary help, and now we've eliminated that and moved it over to the CAO's office.
This is going to fall under the CAO's supervision.
Watchful eye.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're trying to make sure we get all our
Ducks in a row.
all our Ts crossed and Is dotted. In the landfill, which is 410, there were some corrections regarding the total of the CIP projects, and so that amount was corrected and reflected in Budget Unit 410.
What is the amount, Mr. Chair, if I may ask?
It's-
Is that under improvements where it's now
Right.
more than double?
Correct.
Okay, what is the difference?
I had left out the John Smith overlay.
Oh, okay, but I thought that was under the CIP. That wasn't,
But it also shows up in the landfill as an expenditure.
okay.
So-
All right.
Which the landfill actually falls under, that information actually falls under Schedule 11, which I included in here for you so that you could see. That's the actual schedule that the landfill, where the landfill information is. And so I updated that schedule also. And then ultimately, Schedule 1 has all the changes, including some classification changes that I mentioned yesterday between, in trying to make sure we stay in line with the auditor schedules. And so Schedule 1 is the total recap of the county budget with the changes that we just talked about.
Schedule 1, isn't it? I might be looking at the wrong one anyway, but
Is this
Are you,
Schedule
are
one?
you seeing yours?
Okay,
Schedule, do you have one more
Schedule
page?
1 should be the very last page in your
The-
packet.
the very-
Yeah. And the schedule
very
numbers
last
are up
page
on the
in
top
packet.
right-hand
Are you
corner.
missing-
This one?
Are you missing one?
Okay.
And it's broken down into the types of funds, the total financing sources equaling the total financing uses.
Melinda, can I ask you to go back to the landfill one?
To which one?
Landfill,
Okay.
Budget Unit 410?
The line item?
Yes,
Okay.
okay. I probably didn't keep up with you. The interdepartment charges, the 4,800,000, what was that? What was that?
That's the transfer of the landfill reserve
Oh, okay,
that are
okay. All
transferred.
right,
And
okay.
it will show up
Okay, and then,
general fund.
and then yesterday, we had 1,000,001 in improvements, and you're saying you added another 1,000,004 for the
And
John Smith
improvements.
Road in improvement. What
Right.
was the original 1.1 million?
So, right, correct.
What-
And that's the John Smith overlay that I had inadvertently not included
That's
in
the
there.
additional amount. I was assuming the 1.1 that was in there yesterday was the overlay.
The 1.1 was the resource recovery park and a small amount for the landfill expansion. I had inadvertently left out the John Smith overlay project also.
Okay,
And so
The
I
one-
added that in.
.1 is the resource recovery park?
The 1.1 is a resource recovery park. And the John Smith overlay is approximately 1.1 also.
Okay, and the resource recovery park, that's for the road improvements?
I think that's a separate project. I think there's.
Yeah,
two
there's a
projects.
partial-
There's two road projects.
Right,
There's one
for the resource
for the
recovery park,
resource recovery park.
and then there's one for the overlay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, now that we're done with the resource recovery park and we're getting this agreement with the landfill operator, we still have the landfill, but does it make sense to separate and develop another budget unit for the resource recovery park as an independent type of entity? Not in this budget, but going forward, maybe next year, as
Yeah.
a separate budget unit.
Yeah, we'll look at that. We'll work with the auditor on that, but that seems a reasonable. I mean, we have that with the landfill, so I think that would be reasonable just to isolate or separate the cost, make it a little bit easier to read and understand. So we can do that for the following year.
It might, going forward at this point, the landfill is the landfill, and the resource recovery park, that 30 acres should be its own standalone entity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
My
Yeah.
thought, I don't know how.
No,
to
I agree.
I think you're absolutely right. Whenever you have a program change or an activity or some other operational change like that, where it's basically two different types of businesses, because these are really business enterprises, they probably should be separated out. This way you could see
I
clearly
think it's a little bit
distinguish
more
the
transparent to
two
the
operations.
public
Yeah.
as far as the income and expenses and,
Yeah.
and county effort, so.
I agree with you.
Paul, did you have something else?
Mandy asked me to, several times actually, to come up and clarify to the board and to the members of the public if they have any questions pertaining to the $4.81 million that's being transferred in that second page there, or the third to the last page. The 4.818 million on the last column on the right-hand side. That relates to the closure, post-closure funds that are restricted at this time. They're still restricted funds until the state signs off and really releases that restriction. Now, the question's been put out there that enterprise funds rates are adopted by the board, and those rates should reflect a rate that covers total costs. That's all an enterprise fund is supposed to do. So then, why is it that $4.8 million is being, at least from a budgetary standpoint, is being transferred out of the enterprise fund into the general fund? And the answer is that because of a change in financial methodology, the enterprise fund no longer requires those funds that are set aside for the purpose of closure, post-closure, because through agreement, those liabilities associated with those funds have been transferred to a responsible third party, of which the state has given authorization to, to make that arrangement possible. And because those rates were always, I want to say they were set such that total cost was recovered properly. In this case, now there's a change in this methodology. For this next year, the board is in essence saying, hey, we now have a case where we have excess assets. And the board is declaring excess assets and in the enterprise funds, and is authorizing the transfer of these excess assets over to the general fund. This is totally within the prerogative of the board to do. It also has a prerogative to keep it in the enterprise fund and designate it for other purposes. But what it doesn't have the prerogative to do is to leave it in the enterprise fund without a designation, because only the general fund may have funds that are unassigned. And according to the resolution that was passed in 2010, these funds were intended to be restricted for 5 years, according to that agreement. It is somewhat of a tongue-in-cheek restriction, because this board and any future board is not tied by any sort of internally encumbered agreement of that type. So if the board is doing that, it's because it's following the wishes of the board that was that made that decision. But just so you know, this board is not tied to that, not absolutely.
Okay, and may I ask a question? The restriction, the 5-year restriction, can you remind me who put that restriction? Did we do it as a board?
We did.
Yeah. Remind me. Okay.
Hold on, Margie. Hold on, Margie.
It wasn't rubber and I.
No. The reason I ask that is because I have to be reminded if that restriction was something that we had to do by law, that the state of California says, okay, if you're going to take these funds, they cannot be used with the intent being that they were not to be misused, that they were to be planned out and used properly when the time came to use them. But we did the restriction, and I don't remember truly why we did the restriction for 5 years.
Oh, I remember specifically.
I don't.
Well, I thought it was a brilliant idea on my part, and I thought it would stick, but I guess not. But, well, the idea at the time was that we knew we were in a recession. We didn't know how long it was going to last, if you recall. We were burned through our reserves, and, the idea was that maybe this could be a seed money to reestablish some sort of reserve for the county after the recession, or at least develop, like Supervisor Bear Cruz, a plan how best use the money, but preferably reestablish where we have some emergency money on the side that past boards have always enjoyed, and we kind of went through
Absolutely. And Supervisor Bartolo is correct, Mr. Chair. Every word what he said is what he said back then. I remember those discussions we had. In fact, I kind of added some enlightening words to the discussion, and that I totally agree, because at the time we depleted, what was it, a $13 million reserve that it had at one time?
Unbelievable.
And we used that for the ship to land, for a smooth landing. I think we did the job. There might be some disagreement, but I think we did a soft landing. hopefully the economy is beginning to turn around, and these reserves, these dollars, when we discuss it, fine, we will put those, it will be seed money for start building our reserves. But at the same time, we all agree that there will be some monies that we will use for future needs, such as public safety and other items that we did discuss.
Well, then I'll use the excuse that I'd only been on the board for 1 year. So there.
It's hard to remember everything.
No, I don't remember yet.
One of the items in the budget policies that I had recommended, but didn't make it on to this year's budget policies because the desire is that that budget policy that I'm about to speak of should be on the 5-year plan. And that is that the GFOA recommends as a minimum level of 15% fund balance reserve. Many cities throughout the country are adopting much higher levels of fund balance, and counties. It's not unusual to see an agency with a 40% fund balance reserve. And in the interests of, prudent financial management, I really recommend that we, have a kind of a brainstorming session, maybe at a future board retreat, where the board decides, hey, what is that number, and that we should have in savings, so that if we ever have another downturn, anywhere close to the magnitude of the one we just went through, that we are just as prepared as we were as we entered the 2008 recession. So, that'll probably be on a future board agenda item. So I hope that explanation is, clears some things up. And I know that Mandy, Mandy was really, pushing that be done because, in the interest of transparency in government, that they, that the public have an opportunity to hear that explanation. These are
Now, the 5-year timeline on this money has already started, correct?
Yeah,
It started
2010.
in 2010?
Well, actually, it starts the day we get it.
Well, that's,
Well,
But Joe Paul's point.
this is something that we need to resolve. Because in the resolution from 2010, it seems to indicate that's when the 5 years started.
yeah, I remember.
So we need to
Well, and it
clarify when that timeline starts.
it's about the board having some level of discipline too. And from my calculations, that 4.8 million is just short of the 15% reserve. If we were to be at 15%, according to my calculations, of the general fund, I'm saying, we need 5.8 million. And this is, basically seed money. Maybe next year we reach that 15%.
But I think it took, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, it took a while prior Board of Supervisors to obtain that high of a reserve balance, right?
Took forever.
We can't do it just in 1 year, and so your concept of 5 year
Yeah, that's
makes
why I'm
sense.
thinking that as the economy improves,
Yeah.
we build up, where at the end of 5 years, this is our goal. This is where we want to be.
We would be at 80% if we use this right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other questions for me?
all right. Any other questions of Melinda or not? I'll open it up to the public for any comments from the public.
We'll let him go.
Good afternoon, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I would like to see you continue to use some of that money to to get rid of some of your debt. Problem is, everybody talks about, how much we have, and they don't concentrate on the debt a lot of times. So we just did some debt reduction with the teeter fund. But, when you look at the OPEB fund, it's nowhere near where it needs to be on funding. Have you made strides? Sure, you made strides, but if we wanted to get to what I think the government recommends, 70%, somewhere in that neighborhood, we're nowhere near 70%. So, God forbid something would happen, you still owe that money. Another thing is, I understand when I was at the mock budget hearing, we were going to pass up paying the landfill back, the money we borrowed from it for the sheriff's thing, because we didn't have the 350 grand this year. And I think that would leave a 350 or so payment. So maybe since this is landfill money, maybe a good way to use it is pay the landfill back, the loan we took from the landfill, then you can get the money back, and it all comes out to zero, and we get the sheriff's part for free. Oh, that doesn't work, does it? But anyway, the point is that if you pile up debt, and the debt keeps tugging at you, you can have all the reserves in the world. It's going to help you because people don't look at it, the debt offset until the payments have to come. So I'm hoping that you will use it. The city was smart enough to save a fortune by paying down some of their debt, especially the debt that was sitting around waiting to earn 7.5%, which it never did earn. So you can save a lot of money like that. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Anyone else in the public? Seeing none. Mr. Espinoza?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a closing remark with the budget process, if we're at that point. I just want to make sure that I have my part on that. But what I wanted to say was there's been a lot of hard work across the board, all the departments, their financial staff, in particular Dina, Nathaniel, Janet, Denise, Larry, Joe Paul, and the department heads and the financial staff have been, an integral part of getting this budget done before you. But I would like to say a special thanks to Sarah and to Melinda. They've worked diligently. They've come on the weekends to work, so it's been a tremendous effort, and the limited staff that we do have, it was a good thing. So I just wanted to make sure that I made a public record of that.
Okay, now we need to pass the resolution. Now, do we also need to actually vote on the budget policy, or would that vote on the budget policies?
Yeah, so page 8, actually, we have the updated version, right, Melinda, on the resolution?
I don't have the resolution.
Actually, it's on page 8.
Yeah, we need to adopt the resolution.
Yeah. So if you go to page 8 in your packet, that's the actual resolution. And prior to that, there was a staff report requesting your board to actually do the adoption of the resolution fiscal year 14-15, and the resolution is attached. So.
Right. So my question is, do we, this budget policy, do we actually need to, if we pass the resolution, is this included in the resolution, or do we need?
That was part of the budget packet, so I would
It would
consider
be
that being
included.
part of the budget itself, so yes.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution for FY 14-15 adopted budget.
I will make a motion that we approve resolution number 2014-60.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. With that, we're ready to adjourn the budget hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd like to adjourn, but first to say thank you to staff, Melinda, and all those that were instrumental in getting this and making the process easier for this Board of Supervisors. We're eternally grateful. Thank you. Our CAO, I know Matt played a big part too, Joe Paul, the entire staff that played a part in it, I want to thank them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair? I'd like to kudos everything Supervisor Barrio said, and I also like to say thank you to you, Mr. Chair. You set the platform, the benchmark on how to manage, how to chair budgets. You actually took a lot of your personal time to study, do research, and ask a lot of questions. And we all have sacred cows that we want to protect, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that in the form of a second?
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.